Now imagine this. You've just given birth. You're holding your baby for the first time. But instead of joy, your husband looks at you with cold eyes and says, "This isn't my child." Then he throws you out into the rain with your newborn in your arms. Before we start, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story that might just touch your heart. This is Mary's story. 10 years would pass before he saw them again. And when he did, the same cruel words slipped from his lips once more. "Who did you trick me with this time?" Those words, thrown at her on the day of her discharge from the hospital, were burned into Mary's memory forever. Walter, the tireless dealmaker living in a whirlpool of contracts and negotiations, never really knew how to be there. Over the years of marriage, Mary grew used to his coldness and endless absences. Once a young college student, she had seen in him a fortress, a man who could make her dreams of love and protection real. But that day, her world collapsed like a house of cards in the wind. Walter looked at their newborn son with suspicion, his face twisted in rage. "He doesn't even look like me. Who are you trying to fool, Mary?" His words cut deep into the heart of a woman still weak after childbirth. She couldn't understand what she had done wrong. From the moment they met, she'd been loyal only to him. For the dream of giving him an heir, she'd given up her studies, her career, and her own ambitions. And now, all that was crushed by his baseless jealousy. Mary's mother, Helen, had never approved of her daughter's choice. She had warned her, "Why marry a divorced man, and one with a child already? Find someone your age, someone who will make you happy." But Mary's heart was deaf to her mother's words. She saw Walter as destiny, her protector, almost a knight in shining armor. And when he threw her out that fateful day, baby in arms, her faith in love shattered completely. Helen watched in pain as her daughter fell deeper into the pit of someone else's cruelty. But Mary still clung to the belief that Walter was her fate, that somehow he'd come back. Helen never got along with her son-in-law. By age, he could have been her husband, yet he married her young daughter. At first, though, Mary seemed happy. She moved into his big suburban house, still studying medicine. Helen's dream was to see her daughter become a doctor. Helen herself had never fulfilled that dream. She'd gotten pregnant young, left alone when the man she loved vanished. Mary had never met her father, and she'd always longed for a man's protection. Deep down, Helen understood her daughter's choice. Mary was searching for the father figure she never had. 2 years into the marriage, Mary found out she was pregnant, and she was overjoyed, but her mother didn't share the excitement. "What about med school, Mary? You fought so hard to get in. Don't you dare drop out." Mary promised she'd finish after maternity leave. All she wanted was a child. She dreamed of having more than one, an idea that terrified Helen. "A woman should only have as many children as she can raise without a man," she would say firmly. Her fears came true the day Walter lost control. Instead of joy, he unleashed fury in the hospital room. "Get out, you liar! You think I'll raise someone else's child?" Mary tried to explain that newborns don't always look like their parents. But he wouldn't listen. He kicked her out, warning that she'd get no money from him. And so Mary ended up at her mother's doorstep. Helen, ever pragmatic, said, "You gave birth? We'll raise the boy together, but you are not quitting school." Without her mother's support, Mary would have drowned. Helen took care of the baby while Mary finished her studies. Walter kept his word. He never helped financially. For Mary, that betrayal was the hardest blow. The man she once worshipped had thrown her away for pride and jealousy, but she didn't give up. Years passed. Mary worked, studied, and raised her son with her mother's help. The hospital's head physician, Dr. Olivia Grant, noticed her dedication and took her under her wing. "You'll have time to build a career," Olivia told her. "The most important thing, you're already a mother." Mary poured herself into her work. She had to provide for her son, school, tutors, bills. There was never enough money. But little by little, things got better. When Dr. Grant offered her a promotion, Mary could barely hold back tears. "You earned this, Mary. Don't let me down," her mentor said. Mary, who had endured betrayal, humiliation, and loneliness, made herself a promise that day. She would never fail again. "I won't let you down," she said firmly, her eyes shining with the kind of quiet strength that made even the hardest people believe in her. And she kept that promise. Word about Dr. Mary Lewis, the young surgeon, spread quickly. Within just a few months, her name was known not only among patients, but also among doctors from other cities. Sometimes, her mentor, Dr. Olivia Grant, wondered if people were exaggerating when they called Mary a doctor sent by God. But the more stories she heard, the more she realized there was no exaggeration at all. Every story that reached her was filled with sincere gratitude. Mary truly was a doctor sent by God. In her hands, strict science met deep compassion. She wasn't afraid to take responsibility. She always fulfilled her duty and never let emotions get in the way of what had to be done. Even when he showed up at her office door, Mary's expression didn't change. Not a single muscle moved. Calmly, almost formally, she greeted him and invited the man inside. Although his visit was completely unexpected, Walter froze as soon as he stepped through the door. When he saw the name on the doctor's plaque, Dr. Mary Lewis, chief surgeon, he didn't believe his eyes. Could it be a coincidence? He thought, there must be hundreds of people with that last name. But the moment he saw her, he knew. There was no mistake. It was her. The woman he had lost through his own pride and foolishness. "Hello, Mary," he said quietly, barely believing he was saying her name out loud. She nodded politely and motioned for him to sit down. Their meeting felt strange, almost painful. And most of all, it happened for a tragic reason. For the past year, Walter had been searching for help for his daughter. The little girl was seriously ill, and no one could understand what was happening to her. He and his ex-wife had visited dozens of clinics, dozens of doctors. All of them said the same thing. The surgery is too risky. She won't survive it. Everywhere, the same hopeless words. Mary listened silently as Walter spoke. His voice trembled. His eyes showed sleepless nights and fear. "I'm sorry your daughter is going through this," she finally said. "But you know that sympathy won't fix the problem. She needs to be examined as soon as possible. Why didn't you bring her today?" "She's too weak." Walter sighed heavily. "She can barely get out of bed. But if they say you're the best surgeon in the city, then it must be true. Please help me. I'll pay anything." Mary closed her eyes for a second. He hadn't changed. Even now, talking about his daughter's life, he spoke in the language of money. "You know I'm not a poor man," he added. "I'll do whatever it takes. Just save her. I can't live if she dies." He didn't mention their son, Michael, not a single word, as if the boy didn't exist. But Mary didn't think about the past. In front of her wasn't a former husband. It was a father desperate to save his child. And as a doctor, she had no right to refuse him. She explained all the risks and said clearly, "There are no guarantees." Walter nodded, fists clenched. "I agree to everything. Just help her." A week later, when the test results came back, Mary told him she was ready to operate. Walter broke down in tears right there in her office. Tears that surprised even him, as if something inside him, that cold armor he had worn for years, finally cracked. The operation was a success. That day, for the first time, Walter understood there are things that money can't buy. For the first time in years, he prayed, not to doctors or fate, but to God. But the real shock came later. He was standing outside Mary's office waiting to thank her, holding an envelope, a traditional gift for saving his daughter's life. And before he could knock, the door suddenly opened, and a boy of about 10 burst into the room. "Mom, where are you? I've been waiting forever. You promised we'd go to the movies." Walter froze. His eyes locked on the boy's face, and his heart slammed against his ribs so hard he could barely breathe. It was Michael, his son. Mary hadn't even had time to speak before Walter whispered, trembling, "My son." The word came out broken, filled with pain and hope. The boy looked at his mother, puzzled. "Mom, who is that man?" Mary froze. Inside, her soul screamed, "Tell him, Walter. Tell him how you threw us out, how you didn't believe me, how you left your own child." But she stayed silent. "Just an old friend, Michael," she said softly, her voice trembling only for a moment. Walter understood everything without words. Regret filled his eyes. He wanted to speak, to say, "I'm sorry, I love you," but the words got stuck in his throat. He left quietly, leaving behind the faint scent of flowers and a heavy silence. But the next day, he came back, not as a man trying to buy forgiveness, but as someone finally ready to fight for it. "Mary," he said quietly, "I want to see him again. Please, give me a chance. I want to be a father to Michael, or at least try." She stood still, eyes full of tears inside her. Love and hatred, pain and hope all clashed in one storm. And that was only the beginning of a new, even more difficult story.